Friday, November 14th. I went in the woods, I did a little hunting, and found out that the workers trimmed a lot of the tree line where my tree stand was. So I had to move I hunted, and I moved my tree stand, so I'm going to give it a couple of days to settle down before I hunt again. And I said, it's warming up pretty nice. I said, I think I'm going to go home, and I'm going to warm up this twisted stave with some texture on the back. We're going to cook it for a few hours, and we're going to gently just check the clamps, and just 2 fingers to tighten and snug it up as it heats up and gets flexible. And it usually takes about 2 hours. So the coals are going now, and time isn't important, but it's like 10:30. And it usually takes at least 2 hours, and I'm going to show you how to get the proper height from the bottom of the riser to the limbs. And this is how Thad Beckham and Keith Shannon. This is how Keith Shannon came up with this. I don't know how he came up with it, but you can't measure with a tape measure from the bottom of the limb to the coals, because wind and outside temperature affects it too greatly. You can't get a thermometer and start going over, because as soon as you get near the coals, it's going to shoot up, and there's no way of getting an accurate reading. But if you take the palm of your hand and you go underneath the limb and you go 1, 2, 3, and the coals are still catching. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now it's a little harder. 1, 2, 3. At that third count, you don't want to be able to hold your hand there. It's supposed to be too hot for you to hold your hand. So if you went 1, 2, then it's too hot. Okay. If you went 1, 2, 3. If you went 1, 2, 3, 4, then obviously it's not hot enough. You'll have to lower it. Okay, or add more coals. There's a lot of different ways to approach this. So I don't want anybody burning their hand, and all this involves common sense. Okay, so once again, I'm going to say this: if you don't have common sense, don't do this. I don't want you to burn your hand. I don't want you to stick your hand in there and all of a sudden, I got a 2nd-degree burn, because you got to have common sense. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. This is perfect. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we're going to let this go, and in about a half hour, I'm going to show you. I'm going to lift it up in a half hour and show you what it looks like. There should be a little slight coloring starting to take place at a half hour at that correct height. And this particular stave, this bow blank here, I did have tiller flexing a little bit. After this gets fire hardened, it's going to toughen up, and it won't floor tiller that well. So, show you in a half hour what it looks like. If you look at my videos, you'll see I have a video on how I made this gutter system. This is like a $12 Home Depot gutter that I cut up, and it's held on with a strap and a clamp, and this is like a $55 grill, and I have a slat cut. Inside is a section of the gutter, and it has a groove, and this bottom screw protrudes. This one's flush, and this one protrudes, and I can slide it in and out for the size of the wood. Okay, and like I said, you could reference the video. You'll have to search for it. You can reference the video. But what I wanted to show you was, maybe I was unclear before I said, distance between the riser, difference between the distance between the riser and the limbs. So I have this lined with foil, and if you look on the ends, there's just tinfoil trays that I folded up, and I recycle them. I use them all the time, but it just helps keep the coals in because it's tapered up. Okay, and then I line it with foil, and I crumble up foil in the center. This way air can circulate around. And what I do in the center here where the riser is, I just put a few coals and I push them down. And I push them down. So if you went to check the heat, it's about the same heat as it is the limbs. You want the risers, the fade outs to brown a little. Okay, and you'll get that by having a little taper coming up. Okay. So that's something I don't know if I really showed before, the reference to the coals and the riser handle. Okay, so I'll show you in the half hour. Okay, it's been about a half hour, maybe a little longer. And I was constantly checking the temperature, and you grab the clamps, and remember I told you don't want to force nothing, like 2 fingers. But I grab it and I just, see, this is going nice and easy, right? This don't go. Couple of them turned. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop it here. We're going to put it up. I'm going to show you the bottom. And then what we're going to do is we're going to knock the coals around with a stick. We're going to knock the ash off so the coals don't suffocate. We're going to put new coals on and lower it to the correct height again. Okay, we're at that half hour mark and we don't expect a lot of color. And we're going down to the tips. We can see we got a little bit of color going on. Okay, it's the first half hour. From the riser going to the left, we get that little bit of color going down. Okay, well, we have it up in the air. We're just going to knock around. You see all the ash coming off. Okay, going to knock it around. The ash falls to the bottom. We're going to put new coals on. And if you ask how much coals I go through, a bag to a bag and a quarter, bag and a half. It depends on a lot of things. It depends on how long this bow is. This is a 70-inch bow, so it's a little longer. So I expect to go a little bit over a whole bag. Okay. And we're going to knock around even the coals in the middle here under the riser. Okay, we're knocking off the ash and we're going to put some back. Remember, it's going to be lower. The coals are going to be a little lower under the riser. Okay. I'm going to stop it here. No sense in me showing you. I'm knocking them off on both sides and I'm going to add more coals on. Another thing that I have is a little spray bottle. Sometimes the wood will smoke and you can raise it. You can just give it a little bit of spritz and let the cool down and then go back to the correct temperature again. But some woods smoke faster than others, like juniper, maybe sassafras. Different woods smoke a little sooner, so you have to keep an eye on the temperature, raise it up and down, up and down, up and down. It may take a little longer to get the desired color you want. When you put the coals on, they're going to smoke because they're going to start catching. And when you lower the wood, you have to make sure that the coals are smoking and not the limbs. So you kind of have to pay attention. And it's better to wait and just let the coals catch, because I'm going to show you something. We got some fuel. If you're going to rush it, and all of a sudden it'll go poof. All right, watch. Well, it didn't that time. I'm going to get the lighter and light it. What I wanted to show you was sometimes it just ignites, poof. You know, big poof. All right, so better to have patience and wait for safety. And I have this high enough. The flames don't reach up there, okay? And once these catch, I'm going to drop it down and cook it, and I'll show you another half hour what it looks like. So I've been checking the clamps, and just a couple move here or there. Remember, I'm not stressing anything. You're not going to get these limbs where there's humps and bumps. You're not going to flatten them out. All you're doing is making sure the clamps kind of don't fall off, because as the bow heats up, moisture leaves and they shrink a little bit. And what I'm going to do is, it's at that hour mark now. I'm going to pick it up and show you. I had a little smoking on the limb here and a little smoking here. And what I did was I just spritzed it with the spray bottle, and I used that stick and knocked down some coals, and I monitored it, and it was fine. I still do that 1, 2, 3. Okay, so at this point now, I'm going to lift it and show you what it looks like underneath. And then we're going to decide what I'm going to do. At usually the hour to the hour and a half mark, I will move these clamps over about an inch because there'll be white spots from where the clamps are. And even though I think the fire hardening goes all around the clamps, aesthetically, the limbs will look nicer if they were all the same color, okay? So I'm going to put it up, show you, and then we'll decide if we're going to move the clamps now or in a half hour. Okay, I moved the clamps from the riser going to the right. See, we have a lot more color right to the tip. From the riser going to the left, we have a lot more color going to the tip. Once again, we're going to get the stick and knock off ash and add some more coals. So I just dropped it down. The coals are still catching. And even though it's kind of a contradiction, I say the time don't matter, but I like to cook it for at least 2 hours cooking, you know, actual cooking time. So while it's up and the coals are catching, I really don't, I don't count that. I let the coals catch, and I check it every half hour to show you what it looks like every half hour. So now we have it down, and we got to just make sure that the coals are smoking and not the wood, and I checked all the clamps to make sure they're snug. I moved them over, and I'll show you in an hour and a half. As the coals get hot, you got to make sure you raise it, check the temperature, and I'll show you a little bit of the limb smoking. Okay, you can see the limbs smoking a little bit. We're going to give them a spritz and raise. Okay, we're at the proper height. Check the clamps. Everything's good. The limbs aren't smoking anymore. And in the hour and a half mark, I'll show you what it looks like. This bow has been cooking for a solid hour and a half. I checked all the clamps. Some of them moved a little bit more. I'm going to raise it up and show you what it looks like. From the riser going to the right, we get a lot more color going down to the tip, even in the fade out. From the left, got a little color in the fade out there, going all the way down to the tip. Okay, it's going to cook for at least another half hour, but it's coming along. It's looking good. Have more coals cooking. Looks pretty good underneath. We just got to watch for smoking, especially here, because looks like we have a little more gap on the ends than we do in the middle. And I went through a bag and a half of coals, about a bag and a half, just to let you know what I went through. So I think in about another half hour, 45 minutes, it should be the color we're looking for, that dark brown. This has been cooking for 2.5 hours, and we're going to put it over on the table, and I'll show you what it looks like. Yeah, that's been cooking for 2.5 hours. Look at the color on it. And once it cools, I'm going to show you the most important thing that you have to do after fire hardening, and that's hydration. Putting moisture back into the bow. Okay? So after it cools, I'll show you. Pretty interesting. At 2.5 hours, I took the clamps off, and we had a little spring back, but if you look, it's pretty even. Let's check out the bow blank. This is that textured back. See the bumps and the humps? See the hump in the riser? Right? That's why we tiller it with a yardstick. We only pay attention to the belly, the part that faces your belly. And look, this is 2.5 hours of fire hardening. And after we tiller it and get it bending, we could always fire harden it again if need be. What I'm going to show you now is the most important thing to do after you fire harden the bow. Okay, fire hardening does a couple of things. It'll help you align a twisted bow. It takes the moisture out. It makes the cells a little more hydrophobic. It makes it a little water resistant, but you still can add moisture back to it. In other words, it's not waterproof. It's just a little more water resistant, okay, after cooking. So what we have to do is we got to put some moisture back in. So what we have here is a wet rag, soaking wet rag. Look, see? And we're going to wipe down these limbs with a soaking wet rag to try and put some moisture back in. Okay, and I do this 2-3 times, and after I hydrate this, it'll go in the house, and I'll let it stay overnight or 2 days. This way the water that I'm putting on here will have a chance to get into the wood, and it won't be so dry. Okay, I suggest that you go to Shannon Outdoors and check and buy the fire hardening DVD that Thad Beckham and Keith Shannon made, okay, because it's an incredible video. All right, it'll make you be able to go into the woods near your house, find local wood, and make bows with it. Okay, but remember what I said here. The most important thing after you fire harden the bow is get a wet rag and put moisture back into it. Okay, so that's the end of this video. This was fire hardening that bow that had a little texture on the back. Okay, little character on the back. Fire hardening a bow with character on the back. Okay, and when we till this, I want you to look at my videos and Keith Shannon's videos. Tillering a 1,000-year-old bow from Keith Shannon and Thad Beckham. I think 12-day bow. There's a lot of tillering videos. That's where I got the yardstick method from them. I actually had the honor of talking to Keith Shannon a couple of times for a couple hours each time. And if you use the yardstick and only pull down an inch at a time, you'll have less bows that break. You'll have better bows. It'll make you a better bowyer. Okay, so that's the end of this video for today. I'm tired. I'm not a morning person. I was up real early going in the woods and everything. And that's it. Have a good day. Every day you wake up is a great day. Do something, okay? Make the best of it. Life's short. Thanks for watching.